right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to session 4, collective bargaining between district and PBA. Thank you all for being here this morning. I think we'll get started with introductions so we all know who's here. Ms. Williams, if you could get us started, we'll just work around the table.
V. Danielle Williams, Senior Attorney, Office of General Counsel.
Mark Mitchell, Director in HR.
Jean Marie Middleton, Assistant General Counsel, Office of General Counsel.
Luis Ramos Cruz, Manager, Labor Relations.
Diane Wyatt, Director of HR Compliance and Processes.
Tim Kubrick, Chief of Human Resources.
Sarah Mooney, Chief of Police.
Vanessa Snow, Deputy Chief.
Mike Waits, Assistant Chief. Nick Scopolitas, Major.
Officer LaPaul, PBA.
Katie Mendoza, PBA.
Jody Novello, Officer.
Cash Katami, Officer.
It's on.
Mike Lynch, Officer PBA.
All right. Well, thank you again all for being here today. So today's agenda, this is session 4, so we have had traded some proposals, at least the districts, with the reps, between the chief and the reps. We're going to do a real quick year in review. We'll go through those district proposals, see if the union has any to discuss, and then get into when our next sessions are. So real quick, just reviewing last year, despite having to go through impasse, I do think we made some real positive progress with a 5% pay increase. We did have the 3% one-time bonus. We did something that the chief has been looking to do since she's come in, which is establishing a sergeant position, its own position rather than assignment pay, new pay grades and a 10% increase for that. We had other assignment pay increases, and then we also had increases to our outside detail and non-contract rates. Our minimum hourly rate last year established at $33.68, and our max at $57.57. Minimum for sergeants $37.05 and $63.33. So our 12-month officer pay range is there. I think that over the past few years we have made some great strides to be more competitive and similar to other agencies. So I think it's important to review that. Getting into this, we do have some proposals. I know that they were shared with you yesterday, so you've probably had a chance to see them, but we'll work through them. There's not a lot, but if we have any questions we want to get through while we're doing this, we can start now. So one, the chief had mentioned that the reps have expressed an interest in increasing the outside detail rate to $55. So the district is fine with that. We're in agreement with that, and remaining competitive with other agencies. So there's minimal change there, just the rate and the year. That would go in effect on July 1 because that's when our leases are renewed. We provide lease rates to the board beginning of every fiscal year. So that's when we would be able to start that and bill it to the people leasing our properties.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No, I just think that the reps maybe wanted to talk about the holiday rates as well. And I think I have updated rates on that I could pull and send to you afterwards. So if you're still negotiating or working on the leases, maybe we can talk about that too.
Yeah, I think we do have some time still. In years past, when we start getting into like late April or May, I think that's when those rates have been established and board approved. So the sooner that we get through that, the better, because then I could, if we even reach a tentative agreement on it, I can share that, hey, here are the rates that they need to advertise in their board agenda items.
Okay.
All right. This joint study committee has been in the contract for quite a while. It's my understanding that the chief and reps have been discussing this. They have regular meetings on it, and we're really not having a joint study, so it's just a request to remove it. So.
Okay. I think that we just need to make sure we're on the same page that the calendar is bargainable.
That is in the contract. So yeah, we have the past few years. I think the biggest hiccup with the calendar has been the A-B squad, right? And so that's something that I believe Chief's working to eliminate the B squad and just have one, something that you guys have expressed an interest in having. But the one thing about the calendar that we have to just remember is that it's to make sure that we're covering our sites and our programs. So that, you know, the days will be with the amount of 12-month officers we have now. I think it's a little bit easier. But the days are the days that we're in operation over the summer. So.
Well, maybe we can put language in there that they can have a certain time or month. We have that in some of our contracts to meet with you and to just discuss the calendar instead of a whole joint committee.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If you want to propose something, we can take a look at that.
Okay, and I did bring these policies to discuss, and I think that some of them, I don't know if they necessarily relate to the calendar and stuff like that, but I wanted to talk about that, but I'll wait till you get through all of this.
Okay. On the attendance supplement, so this is a proposal to replace the attendance supplement with a 0.20% base salary increase for all officers. We'd like to eliminate it. We think it's helps in, you know, creating more simplified, more transparent pay structure. Adding to the base salary makes it recurring, compounding, increases your overtime rates, increases pension. So it's something that we would rather just not have it. We've done this with some other of our other groups over the years, and you know, by eliminating it, added a larger base salary increase. And you'll see that is, if really when you look at it, it's combined with also a request to eliminate this, the performance-based pay plan. So this would result in a 0.3% increase to the base salary. So combined, if we do both of them, it's another 0.5% that will be added to the base salary. I think that, you know, our efforts on our side have always been to put everything we can towards base salary, not towards these supplements and hidden pay, and that sometimes people don't even realize they're getting. I think it does better for the officers when it's in the base pay, so that's what this request is about.
Okay, we're open to talking about all this, and I don't think we're closed off to getting rid of these, but with that being said, I think we just need to talk about the experience-based pay plan that you guys proposed yesterday, and I didn't even get to read the whole thing until this morning because I was in Boynton, but I think we have concerns with that, and I'm glad that that was a proposal, like a progressive plan like that, because I think it took us 5 years to get to something like that, so we're excited about that, but I think that it needs to include everyone, and we'd like it to the amounts obviously to be higher and in line with maybe like more what the CTA gets, and for experience inside and outside. So we're open to talking about these things, but obviously it's in line with the other fiscal items, so.
Okay. Salary plan, this has been shared with the chief, so we have spending authority up to 4% for officers. And so that's just a modification of that from last year's rate increase.
Okay.
Any other requests on this would, if there were other requests to say we want to spend more money somewhere else, we would have to decrease this.
Well, I think that well, at least mine, I was surprised to read at the end of the pay plan for the experience pay that it was inclusive of this. Because basically that means they're only getting like 3.5%.
Well, all right, when we'll get to that, but let's just like kind of step back and try to think about what this really means. We do think, we've talked over the years that you know, recruitment is an issue, right? Trying to get officers in. So we tried, this is our proposal, this is something we've talked about internally for a while, and it's, you know, not all that easy to get, you know, this kind of spending authority, I'll say, right? It will help us recruit from other agencies, I think. It's a great start. And even for those officers who have been here for a very long time or have maybe spent their whole career here, we've looked at their salaries to see where they are, and they've been receiving pay increases for us. If you have external experience, though, and we've looked at it, we did a survey a couple years ago, that's where this came from, and the majority of the officers have external experience.
How
That they
many?
be bringing forward, that they would be used for credit for salary.
How many?
And it was well over 100. It was a very large number of officers have external experience.
You're talking
We'd
like
have to
over
do, we'd have to do an updated one, obviously, and we'd have a process to review that. But I think the officers know what they have, and they know what years they've worked somewhere else. So if you have, let's say, 16 years of experience, and you take the attendance and performance pay plan, we're talking about an 8% increase this year. There's no other way that we see us getting to that.
That's fine when you say it like that, but then they look at the referendum monies, which are put out to the public for school police, school safety, and the teachers get up to $10,000 a year. So I would be curious to see what that is in a percentage. So
Well-
that's fine when you say it like that, but I would like to do my own survey on what the years are. But 4 plus just 3.5, and then when you compare it to the CTA referendum plan, it just doesn't seem right, honestly. So
3.5%, at least 3.5%, you could say, was the raise that was the year of 7%. That year we were giving out 3.5% raises to everyone else. So 3.5% extra was paid for, at least. I know she paid for the whole 7% out of it, the referendum. But that is referendum money that went to your base salary rather than a supplement.
it's
where
needed
if
because
it-
you were 75 or 80 short, and now you're still 50 short.
Well, I know that keeps coming up, but every single one of our campuses are covered on a daily basis. Am I correct?
But, because they have
So-
to be
so
with the
there's
contract
a difference, but there's
officers.
a difference between fully, what we have allocated a number of positions. Do you really need 50 more officers? Maybe, maybe not. But, our responsibility is to make sure that every single campus is covered with an officer.
So I guess that's do you guys prefer the contract officers? Is that,
No.
no?
And obviously, our actions say that we don't. We've increased the number of officers. I think we're closing in on 250 officers now, which is the highest that we've ever had. So, no, we don't prefer that. I'm just saying that we have been better able to staff our police department. And, and that's through some of the efforts that we've done over the past few years with pretty competitive pay increases and a competitive starting salary.
I think we have a few questions that we're going to follow up with. So we want to know, I guess, how much was spent on the attendance supplement last year, how
Yeah.
much went out for the performance-based pay plan. I know you
So the
have,
performance-based pay plan is $100,000, right?
Okay.
So that's, and how we got here, that's, a 1% increase is $270,000.
that's
we-
including all the taxes and the FRS.
I'm not sure,
benefit.
Heather's not here today, but I'd
so.
have to ask her, but, I worked through this with her, and basically, it's 3.3% is about that. It's probably on a little more than it, but it's about that, right? And on the attendance supplement, we annually spend about $60,000, so we wrote that out as 0.2. So that's how we made sense of it.
Who else got rid of their attendance supplement?
It was before my time, but I believe it was the ASOP group. Mark, you might remember. Yeah.
To the extent possible at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the,
ASOP and SEIU.
I believe the only ones that have it are bus drivers.
Yeah, that's
this
right.
time.
Okay, I think we're gonna do some requests on the numbers, but that's just what I would say that, we're open to the 4. I would like to even try to do a 2-year deal, but we want to improve the experience-based pay plan. I don't think it's right. Carol's not here today, but she has 22 years here. And I don't think she has much experience outside of here, but she's a great sergeant and she's not included on that plan.
Well, it is something that, all right, our goal on it is to increase our ability to recruit from other agencies, right? And coming in at your base salary isn't as enticing as it is when you could come in at a higher base salary. when we do that, we do recognize that we would never want, and part of our review is to make sure that anybody coming in would not be above one of our current officers who have like experience, right? So people with like experience should not, like, if you come in with 10 years, you're not coming in at a higher rate than somebody within the department already has 10 years of experience. So,
Right, but I'm talking about including the people in the department.
yeah. Well, I'm
And
willing to
I
hear-
think that
to-
would attract younger officers too, if we include inside experience.
I don't think the inside experience would help us. They're the ones
It's
who are
encouraging
here,
them to
right?
stay.
To stay,
Yeah.
right. I'm open to hearing a proposal on that.
I think that we would like it to look like the CTA plan, and then it can sunset if the referendum sunsets.
The referendum supplement, you mean?
Yeah, like how the teachers, they get the referendum supplements. And I'm not even saying necessarily the same number plan, like how they get up to $10,000 a year. I'm just saying that something more along the lines of that, including everyone across the board. And if you're worried about the funding, it can sunset if that ever sunsets, because it is put out to the public as for school police, school safety. And I do think there's a need for it because you're still 50 short, so.
Well, I understand that request. I know you guys have been requesting it for years now. I do recognize that.
And then I
At this
think
time,
that if,
there's no plan to change how the referendum money is spent.
well, last time it was kind of said before the board that it just was already allocated, but even if you guys could plan for it for the future, so it's just like you don't want to. Because you could do the budget, you can plan the budget around it.
You mean for the next referendum?
No,
Is that
I'm
what you're
saying for the next year, and we can try to do a 2-year deal. I don't want to drag these things out, but I think that it is a necessity when you're 50 short and you're excluding people who don't necessarily have experience outside of there, and then you're saying 7.5, but it's really 3.5. So,
Right.
yeah.
It's it was a stretch to get to this for us. We're trying. We really are. We think that the current officers and the many officers who have 16 years of experience from outside agencies who have come to us, I think it's a pretty attractive deal, to be honest with you. I really do.
Well, I think I'm gonna do my own survey to the members to see actually what the experience numbers are. We're probably gonna have a member meeting, and then I'm gonna request some numbers.
I think we might get better participation if we did that together, rather than one side doing it than the other. I think, like, really what we'd want to do is get the best estimate possible, right?
Well, I will share that information with you, but that's our role as the union to do
Okay,
that.
I understand that. I'm saying we're willing to cooperate on it to just see what exactly that means, because I think the better picture we have of what people will be getting makes it a lot easier to understand, like, is this a really great deal? And I
Well,
think people, when they see that, will realize it is.
It's kind of, I don't even think you can even accurately run the numbers if you don't have an updated survey. So, but that's something we can do and share with you, because it sounds like you're working off an old survey.
Yeah, it is. So even back then, but external experience for those existing officers likely didn't change. They had
Right,
it
but
coming
you've
into
been
us.
losing 10 to 15 at least a year, so you have a high turnover, but
I think we don't have high turnover. We really
Okay.
don't. But I know you keep saying that, but we really don't.
Well, we did a records request, and you have about 16% vacancy rate, and at the other departments where we see around 5 to 10%, they're trying to work to lower that. So you still do have a higher vacancy rate, and I know you say you don't prefer contract officers, but it seems like maybe you say your schools are filled, which I get, but don't you prefer to have your department staffed?
Chief, how many officers are we using from other agencies at this time, roughly?
For full coverage, we just use them as supplement. So all of the schools are covered by our own officers. Sometimes they have to switch from one school to the other because we have some schools that have more than one district officer assigned. But we have contracts in place to just have the locals on the campuses to supplement what we have.
The
as
one.
the day-to-day coverage. So there's no agency that we are relying on to cover a school.
Including like the supervisors covering and things like that.
What, I don't understand.
Like, what are you saying? Are you saying one
Every school has an officer assigned
Okay.
from the school district.
Okay,
Full, like, that's their school.
But
So
some
over
need-
and beyond, some of them have more than one, but we do have contracts in place so that we can supplement our staff on the campuses. We want the locals in our schools. And the more we could have, the better, but not to replace our guys. It's just to supplement our guys and girls.
right, because some do need more than one. Like, Mike, do you have a second officer permanent now?
I do. He gets moved on occasion, but I do have a second officer.
Okay. Okay, well, those were our thoughts, and I do appreciate the experience pay offer, but those are our responses to it, and I do want to do some requests as far as the finances and survey our members. So, I do want to talk about these policies, though.
Just real quick on that too, though, on the 0.5% that is basically we're going to be paying our members that you're saving.
I'm not sure I understand.
So if we're saving 0.2% on the attendance supplement and 0.3 on the 165, that's now no longer going to those officers that would have received those supplements. So in reality, we're paying for that out of our
They're
pocket
taking
to
away
get-
one
And you're
thing
not
to
You're
give
taking a
the
Right.
0.5%,
Yes.
yes.
We're
From one- we're
reallocating
moving
it towards base
reallocating
salary.
it to
Yeah.
another area. So the first 2 years on the plan here wouldn't cost you anything for anybody that's coming in, because it's 0.5% after 2 years. And then each one
Are
of
we
these
talking about two
actually
different
is,
things?
He's saying it's
well,
a wash.
it's a wash.
No, the new hires would cost more, so it wouldn't be a wash necessarily.
If they're only getting 0.5%.
The new hires will cost us more. We'll be able to attract more new hires with that additional.
I think he's saying for like what they receive now for those benefits versus the 0.5 altogether.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, exactly.
You're talking about the supplement, the
The
performance
supplements,
pay plan
correct,
and the
correct.
attendance supplement.
Correct.
So eliminating that, it's a 0.5% that goes to your base salary, that future increases will be larger because it's compounding. It will go impact your overtime rate, it will impact your pension, positively, because increases will be larger over time. So, and it includes everybody on the force at that time. So everybody gets that.
And again, I think we're flexible, but we just want to see the referendum money being used.
Yeah, that 100,000 is closer to 0.75% by itself, not including the sick portion.
100,000?
And that's also, right now, we get it reoccurring. You're talking about a one-shot deal.
It's not really a one-shot deal. It goes to your base salary, which you keep, right? You get it,
Right,
you
he's
get it
just
every
saying-
year,
Talking
no
about
matter what.
compounded,
It's just-
right?
And
The
it's,
one
then
time.
so you went up a 0.5% larger raise, this would be. And then your next raise is larger because it's on a larger rate, right? Your next percentage raise is based on a higher amount
Talking
before.
about compounded, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
I'll
But we
understand.
get that, right now, we get that 100 grand every single year.
Some do, some don't, right? Some
Right, exactly.
get benefit
But
from
that
it,
could
some
still be
don't.
financed every single year, no
Right.
matter what
Our
number we
interest
come up
is really
with.
just trying to simplify what I would say, and what Chief has expressed to me, is a very complex pay system that we have here by, and this is kind of common throughout the district, and something that we'd love to do throughout many of our employee groups is eliminating so many of these hidden monies, right? And put everything towards your base salary. We think that is a better long-term result for our employees. So that's a way to get our base salary higher, and an increase, a higher raise is something that we know we're gonna talk about. So,
Is that 0.3% and with the other two, is that reoccurring then?
yeah.
It'd be compounded, if I may just give an
Not compounded,
example.
Just mean
To your base, so you're gonna have it every
one
year.
time, though.
It's not like you're gonna get 0.3, 0.3, 0.3.
Oh, okay,
No,
but
no,
we
it's-
do get the 100,000.
It's still there. It's
If-
there
if-
every single year.
know, but
because it's
that's
once you
not-
put it in
that's
there,
not what
it's
he's-
always there.
Right, we know.
If I may, to use your example, the
lived 30 years, it'd be
$100,000,
great.
the $100,000 has been the $100,000 for going back for a few years, right?
Okay.
So let's say we did this last year, or the year before last year. Instead of it being 100,000 the next year, you guys got what, 7.5%? It'd be 107,500. Because it's going to compound every year. So in our proposal, it's going to increase that 100,000 now that's rolled into your base. It's going to increase by whatever the base salary is. So that 100,000 becomes 107.5, then becomes 114.
Spend
Does
is
that make
more
sense?
on our side.
Yes, because it
Year
compounds.
after year. The spend is more for us than 100,000. So we truly do believe it's a better benefit for the employees than leaving it at the $100,000. And it's something that, Chief has looked at and has expressed that she'd just rather not have that. Just doesn't feel that it's a great design or something like that. So,
And I think we're open to that if we can restructure the
universe.
experience pay plan, so.
okay.
Evals, I wanted to bring up evals, because I know you may be proposing some changes, so is that like still on?
Eval change is just, I can. get
Like, I
down
mean the
to that.
actual form, the
Oh.
actual evaluation sheet.
So basically, right now, the evaluation was built in order to address this 165-point evaluation system. To me, there's way too much room for error, so to speak. If you get it's so subjective that it kind of cuts the legs out from under people. If they get a new supervisor who decides to rate a little harder, people have the opportunity to lose their supplement. So it kind of goes hand in hand. If your performance pay gets wrapped up to everybody gets it, the evaluations will not carry as much weight. I'm looking to evaluate, are you doing the job appropriately or not? If you're doing it appropriately, it should be pretty easy to go down a checklist that's a lot less convoluted than the current tool that they're using. And I'm looking to see acceptable, not acceptable, as opposed to having 5 different levels of acceptable.
So you're gonna get rid of the number scale.
To a degree, like it's going to be more based like the FTO DORs are. So I do want to be able to recognize people that have been doing exceptional work. I don't want to lower the bar for them. I want to have the ability to be able to recognize them. And I kind of brought it up that there's potential to maybe we can do an award or something like that is not necessarily going to put money in your pocket, but it's going to showcase that you're doing a little bit more work than the average Joe that's just acceptable. So I don't want to eliminate evaluations, but I want to make it cleaner so that it's truly evaluating our day in and day out work and have the ability to recognize somebody that's going over and beyond. But I want to work together. We have already discussed through the policy part itself trying to rework the whole tool. I talked to the reps about this during our couple meetings, that I would like to sit in with them, go through it so they see exactly what it is. But the reality of it is the only thing that it will impact is if you're not carrying your weight and you're not acceptable. That the only negative thing would be that potentially, like the language is now, that you may not be eligible for your raise the following year if you don't meet standards.
Okay, so that's
But
still
it doesn't make or break you on getting a piece of the 100,000 that's in place right now.
Okay, so you're still working on exactly
Yes,
how you want
yeah,
it. Okay.
definitely.
Is it, does it affect your promotional?
If you hit a not acceptable,
That's the only way. But
Pretty
you can
much.
have 2 people that are acceptable.
Like
Right.
of just one category, because that's,
that's up for discussion. I mean, this is more in line with, this is more in line with trying to eliminate the performance pay piece. This kind of goes hand in hand with it. I still want to redo the evaluation tool, whether the performance pay stays or not the way it is. Because to have 185 points or 195 points that are just arbitrarily thrown together on an evaluation tool, to me, is ridiculous. I don't know who created the form. Sorry if somebody's listening that did, but it's the way it's set up right now. It's not a good evaluation of what these guys are doing day in and day out.
it's probably old, right? It's really
Yes,
old.
it's very old.
Okay, all right.
It's arbitrary. I want to have something that actually evaluates what everybody's doing.
Okay, so we'll just wait to see that. All right. And then I wanted to bring up the sergeants, because there's language in there. We'll have to add the unit number. That's simple. And then I know I emailed you guys, we're probably going to appoint one more sergeant rep. So I guess we'll have 2 sergeant reps and the 4 officers. So But that's something I'll have to talk about with my board.
Okay.
Okay. And the calendar, I guess I'll propose some counter language to that. And then I'll propose probably a counter to the experience pay plan based on the numbers that we request. And, oh, we wanted to clear up the like if we're gonna get retro, the actual date and how it's paid out. Because it was confusing before, and there were 3 different dates involved, I think. So we wanted to make sure that's in the contract and laid out so
Yeah,
everyone knows.
usually it's not very difficult. Last year was an unusual one because it was like the whole year, right? It was.
The year before,
so
there were
far
issues
beyond.
too, I think.
I think that, yeah, I'm not sure. I recall something. I can tell you that, depending on when we get an agreement, there are certain times that are blacked out for, other payroll processes that have to run, our year-end processes, our summer pay period processes, things like that, system upgrades. So those are usually timed all around the same time. And this year, I think there is if I'm recalling correctly, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was April 11th is when an agreement has to be ratified and approved by the board in order to get it in prior to our June. In June is when it would open back up.
What do
for
you
us.
mean? What do you mean?
Like the system's closed out for a period of time because we run
Your
like
pay
a
system?
massive amount of summer paychecks for employees and end of fiscal year processes. So I think it's good that this came up because then we know up front that, hey, this is the time frame when, I think we have a bunch of sessions scheduled here. So I think if we stick to it, I think maybe we could work to get a deal before then, but anything after April 11th would have to pause until June, like would start coming out in June.
Okay, well, I guess.
Mark, did I do that right? You did it right. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And that's not that's something controlled by our payroll process. I mean, we have 28,000 employees who get paychecks. And the last year's one,
But what was the
going
3
through
dates?
overtime
What were the 3 dates, just so that
that we did last year, you mean?
that we just, yeah,
It
had to deal with?
It was pay rate increases, right? Then your retro pay, and then
Overtime?
the overtime increases. So there's like a ton of records that we have a full year of it to go through and adjust and make sure that there's a QA on it to make sure that, hey, we're doing this right, because I think that's what happened the year before is that
It was
some
the
mistakes
incorrect
were,
rate or
yeah,
something.
there were some mistakes and people were over or underpaid, something like that.
Okay, I feel like if everyone's in the know, at least it'll not be such a big deal.
Agreed.
Okay.
So I know you've had a chance to kind of review this. I don't know if you have any other questions on it, though.
Quick question on the salary schedule, too. Those numbers that you have up there are based on just the 4%,
Correct,
nothing else?
correct. Right there?
Yes.
Yes. So if the extra 0.5% is, if you guys go for that, right, the performance and the attendance supplement, then it wouldn't be applied to this, because that would only be for this, because this is for new officers, so, new employees, right? That would just go to the existing officers.
Okay, I'm gonna write a counter, so,
I know we've talked about this before here. Is it costing more increasing the starting salary versus increasing the top out?
say that again, Mike, what do you mean?
So,
Is anybody impacted by the max? you mean?
correct.
I don't believe so.
The
Mark,
max isn't
yeah,
impacted,
we
it's
don't-
just a,
We have kept increasing it, but nobody is at the point where they'd be redlined and not, getting their raise. Like, when you reach the maximum hourly rate, in most agreements, you're redlined and you just get a check for the pay rate increase. But ours, we've increased them both, and we've increased them by our raises, so really it's keeping pace with the people. So you're not people are, employees have not reached the max at, you know, that
Does it,
that we're
what does it
offering.
cost the district to increase the starting pay?
4%?
So it's just a 4%,
The 4% increase over the last rate.
okay.
So a new officer
He
will cost
said that-
4% more.
He said that he thought that 1% was 265,000, but they.
That's what I'm,
they-
dollar-wise, that's what I'm talking about.
But they include the cost of taxes and stuff like that in their number, so.
But it won't cost on the high end.
It'll
About
cost
$1 million,
on the
I guess.
employee, you know, some of the, well, the employees towards the higher end cost more, obviously. Their
Yeah,
percentage pay raise is more expensive for a veteran officer than it is for a brand-new one.
Yeah, I'm not putting it in words right, but next time I'll have that
Okay.
for you.
Okay, so, I think we understand the offer, so we're gonna digest it and talk to the membership and come back with a counter. And then I think we meet in like 2 weeks, but I wanted to talk about these today.
Just a quick question about that,
Sure,
Max.
sure.
Yeah, that max you had up for the 12-month officer, 119,740. I get this question a lot. What's the process of getting that?
Nobody's at it, right?
No, I don't
believe so. So what's the process
Yeah.
for getting it?
How do you does that include career
Honestly,
path and
the
time
way we've
on?
been increasing it, nobody's going to reach it necessarily, but it allows for someone to be, you know, if you're working, it allows for you to keep, you know, getting salary increases, which are, you know, are in your pension, your highest years. So we've just kept increasing our min-max by the same amounts every year, where a lot of times you don't, you try to shrink it together a little bit, so you don't have a max. If you look at across other agencies, we're one of the highest, if not the highest max. Most people's max are way below ours.
But other agencies are getting maxed out, though. That's where the difference is. And we had this discussion.
That's not a good thing to be maxed out.
Yes and no. I mean,
Well, they have
everybody would always
progressive
like
pay
to be
plans
maxed.
too,
Everybody would
though.
always like to be maxed out.
If the
Yeah.
max is lower and you've maxed out, it's not as good as not being maxed out.
But you shouldn't be
But all these
$20,000
places have
less
progressive
than the
step
max,
plans,
I would
though.
say.
Their steps even shift
Yes.
every year.
Making more
so.
money is good.
Yes.
So we've just,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's basically a hypothetical then. So if for some crazy
pay
reason we
range.
had 20% a year for the next bunch of years, we'd max out at that 119.
We have some
Is that
people
what
who
it
are
is?
close to it.
Okay.
So that's why we've kept increasing our max to make sure that they're not redlined.
There's not, out of all our officers, what I think ballpark is about 250. No one's collecting that, but you're saying a couple are close.
As a
Got it.
couple are close, but,
Okay.
you know, and that's, remember, your base, not your total. Like there's,
And you would typically have to be here from day one and work here 20, 30 years to get to that, as opposed to an experienced officer who comes here with 20
Correct.
years and works here for 10. You're not getting anywhere. Okay, thank you.
well, unless we,
That's a good,
unless,
that's a good statement, because this is, people conflate, you know, most people, you seem to have a better grasp on it than most people I've ever talked to, but they conflate a pay range structure with their actual pay. You know, they're really two different animals, you know, so a pay range structure is designed, just like you said, to be a career path for a normal 20-year person. So many jobs, your job's unique because of the competition in the industry. Many jobs in the industry, the pay range will stay the same for years. You won't raise the min, you won't raise the max. So pay range structure is a whole different animal than your individual pay, right?
Gotcha. Thank you.
And the insurance rates, when are you guys planning on putting those into effect? The increases?
they're in effect. The
The
insurance.
2025 increases?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're in,
Okay.
they're in, the only, you know, as you, I think you know, we did not settle with SEIU and we're
Right.
going through impasse with
But
them.
I wasn't sure if you actually,
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we would rather do that than to have to hit a retro
right, that's
payment
why I
that-
was asking.
Yeah, no, everybody's caught up, it's already been,
Did
you
an
know,
email go
established.
out or something that?
They
you
did an
guys-
open enrollment
Okay.
a new open enrollment where they acknowledge the new rates and stuff like that.
Okay, so that's taken care of. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, I just wanted to talk about these policies. So, the leave policy, and I gave you some copies, but we just had a few questions, and the leave, this is something I think we voiced
Are these
a lot.
all the same? Oh, okay, I'm holding them all. I thought they were all different ones.
There's two separate ones, so this was
May I have one
proposed,
back?
I think, the last time, and we said we wanted to keep it with the first line supervisor. And talking to the reps, I think it kind of, everyone does it differently in their chain, but we still wanted to keep it with the first line supervisor. The proposal was to change it to the captain to approve or deny leave requests. So, and talking to them, it sounds like everyone does it a little bit differently, but I just always think you should follow the chain.
I know we've talked about that before. I remember probably my first year here with that was when this came up.
Right.
But I mean, there might be reasons for management to adjust how that's done. I don't think that really adjusts the, is something that is, I think they have the right to do that, to adjust how you submit your absence request.
Well, it's definitely bargainable, so I think we want to keep it with the first line supervisor. Talking to the reps, they still do email the supervisors, at least a few of them. So I don't know why you would skip and go to the captain.
Chief, do you have any input on
Yeah,
that?
it has to do with the telestaff system and the accountability for who's making the final approval. They can still talk to their first-line supervisors, and they can help get it through the system, but this is more or less to put the captains on notice that they're the ones responsible for making sure everything is approved or not.
So like
Because
Mike's.
they're responsible ultimately for the coverage. So if somebody in the south end puts in for a day and their sergeant is not aware of the north end having a need where that would put them over the max, we want the captains communicating as opposed to 30, sergeants trying to communicate. and
Okay,
figure
so
that out.
this is strictly for telestaff.
Pretty much, yeah, just for
Okay.
the approval process. They can still talk to their supervisors, it's not like we're trying to take them completely out of the loop, but I want the captains to be the ones checking it off, because if there's a failure to cover something, it's gonna come back on the captains.
So is that fine with you guys then? Has there been an issue with that? Because I think that it's been done a little bit differently for everyone.
It definitely has, that's why we're trying to tighten it up, so that you have somebody that's ultimately responsible for saying yes or no. And then when somebody goes, well, so-and-so told me I could, and then that person said, no, we want this is the end of the road, this is a person responsible for checking the box, yes or no. They can still work through their chain, and they probably will still work through that, but
The captains, we just don't want the captains to come back and say, hey, you emailed your sergeant or lieutenant and this and that.
we can talk through that. I mean, it's not to try to get people in trouble, it's trying to make sure that we have coverage.
Okay, so maybe we can email this.
And I think Joe had mentioned it before, there's got to be some kind of a time limit. We don't want to send a request in 3 months in advance, and it doesn't get approved until 24 hours before the date that I'm going on
Right,
vacation.
so you see, there's a time for when the request could be made, a certain time of the day, 16:30 hours. There's a time where sergeants
is-
can make adjustments on it, but there's no time when it needs to be approved. So we have a lot of folks, and I get a lot of feedback on this. They plan travel, Daytona 500 travel, and they put in 3 months, 4 months in advance, 2 months in advance in order to get better rates on hotels and travel and so forth. So to get approved in a certain, and to wait for months and then constantly follow up on top of it.
That's what we're trying to correct. So in A, on page 2, we can add a timeline. That the captain's ultimately responsible for doing it. They're supposed to check at the beginning of the shift and at the end of the shift. So within 24 hours, there should be an approval or a denial on it.
And what is the 16:30 hours? Is that already happening?
No, that's what we're trying to get to, so that the supervisors are checking at the beginning of the shift and at the end of the shift. So if somebody puts in, like, oh my God, I need an emergency day off tomorrow, put it in before the end of your shift, so we have somebody that looks at it and knows that you need the time off.
Just continuity is what we need. 'Cause
Yeah.
I have it in my zone, it's not a problem.
Right.
Other zones
Oh,
don't.
Correct.
have that.
Well,
we
maybe
got
we can reword that to
Can we add a time to that? I mean, even if it's 24, 48, 72, someone's putting in 3 months in advance, 3 days is not unreasonable to get back with an approval.
I think
Not
that's
even
what you're
take it
saying.
longer.
That's what I said. I put it in, no, the supervisor should be checking them daily. So the approval or denial should come almost immediately.
Okay,
I may put 72 hours, but I don't want to give them that big a window.
gotcha.
Okay, I think I'm gonna add, I'm gonna propose to add, something about just notifying the sergeant and then maybe clarifying the time limit. Okay, I think that's the main thing for that one, and then extra duty, let's see. The extended time, we wanted to talk about that on page 2. It says officers whose duty hours are extended contiguous with regular duty hours shall be paid for time work, not a 3-hour minimum. So I guess, speaking to them, this sounds like it's really just referencing morning and aftercare. Is that accurate, or what you're?
Yeah, pretty much. Whoops. Pretty much. So if you're coming in 45 minutes ahead of school to help with metal detectors, you don't get a 3-hour minimum for that.
Okay, then
If you stay for an hour after because they need extra help at the bus loop, then you get paid for that extra hour.
Okay, then I'm gonna propose something to make that a little clearer. And then they said they've been having issues with, I guess, the principals not knowing about the 3-hour minimum that we just did put into effect.
And that has to do with this. I talked to Officer Novella yesterday, and we'll clarify that with the principals so that they understand it. And if worst case scenario, if we got to put some more money in their budgets to make sure that they're meeting the contract, we'll do that.
Okay.
But I do know that the extended time is a key piece to that, though. I don't need the guy, we had a 15-minute break, so now I'm going to this next thing and I get 3 hours because I got to work for an hour.
Right.
So if we're gonna wiggle on the extended time, if it's a homeschool officer that is gonna work right after, I'd rather pay you the extra 15 minutes between when you got off and when you start the next thing than say you automatically get a 3-hour minimum for that.
Okay.
If you're not working 3 hours.
And
Clarify it.
we agree with most of that too, so we just need to put it on paper because
That's
we're
fine.
getting 17 different,
That's fine.
um,
And the teachers, the principals are familiar with some of the contract, but maybe not all of it.
No, it's a
So
lot.
when we tell them, hey, you got to pay them 3 hours, some of them may rethink what kind of coverage they want to have. So I just want to make sure that we're not cutting our nose off to spite our face and make sure that it's clear for them to understand what they're paying for.
And then I just had a question about page 3, G and H. Like what really that means. Is that what's happening now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's some people who may work in the south end, and they live in the north end, and they want to work some of those extra shifts. They get the opportunity to work those based on seniority, not necessarily where you're assigned.
And
So, like,
that's been going on for a long time? Is that-
No.
No?
Because we haven't had the Bravo shift, you'll have to speak on the Bravo shift. I think that's kind of just been the bid on seniority anyway. But
Looking at this now is with the addition of the Charlie shift, to try to, the last time we had the meeting, we talked about the seniority, the last work session, where it was on a rolling seniority base. And it's like the chief said, if I live in Boca and I want to work something but work central, it gives me a chance to apply. So it's just a rolling rotation on the seniority. And it's the way it's built out in telestaff to try to just keep it equally dispersed amongst the officers.
it's trying to define the difference between a homeschool officer staying at homeschool and then going out to their zone, sector, whatever, to branch out to fill an overtime that they're coordinating. These are countywide details, so we open it up by seniority as opposed to where you're assigned during the day.
I guess I had a question about per detail duration. Is that, like, it's categorized by, that just means it's put out by?
So like a spring break coverage is gonna be different, so it'll be rolling during that week of sign up
Okay.
until it's full.
Are you guys fine with how
So it's
that
not like
works?
we're not gonna start, if we're gonna use the seniority piece for that 1 week worth of details. So the other ones, they're doing a 30-day calendar roll, so the seniority continues through that and then resets. But it goes as long as that detail continues. If it's got a start and an end, we want everybody to have the opportunity to sign up for it. So if it's only a week long, I don't want the same guy getting the opportunity to work 5 details and somebody else gets none. So the seniority would be just for that week.
Okay, so that's.
And it rotates through.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to propose for these two, I guess, clarify both of those for each, and then that should be fine. Okay, all right, well, you're probably gonna get an email from me. I'll just send it to you, I guess, with the number stuff.
I don't know if you had a chance to review this, the Joint Study and a Career Ladder Path
I
Program.
did,
It didn't sound like it was going anywhere fast at this particular times, and from our discussions with the chief, so we kind of weren't pushing on it right now either. We'd rather get it done sooner than later, of course, but I think it's in a standstill at this particular moment.
And that's why we wanted to put this in there, so it gets the ball rolling, so that we have a resolution to this particular benefit by October 31st. So we want to get the committee together. We just wanted to add this so that we will work together, look at it, kind of rebuild what this program looks like, because right now it's just all over the place. So I want to get it to where it makes sense, where there's clear things that you have to do in order to get through that career path, and what does that career path really look like? Because it's very, very vague in the contract, and it's very convoluted in the policy. So
Yeah.
I want to merge those so that we have something that works for both sides.
yeah. I'm fine. I'm always for you guys talking about it. As long as I review the final proposal, I'm fine with it. You guys can meet as much as you want, so.
But
yeah.
that's what it requires, that it would come to us.
Yeah,
once
yeah,
it's done,
so I'm
so,
fine, yeah,
okay.
that's good. Okay. All right, so we meet soon, so
March
I'll
5th,
get
yep.
you those. I'm gonna try to get you those in advance, but I guess I'll have to get the numbers back first. I'll email you.
Yeah, the more in advance, I mean, we've kind of, since this is session 4, since Chief and the reps have already met a few times, I feel like we're at an advanced stage of negotiations here. We're not right at the beginning, so.
Right.
Anything from this point forward, if you have proposals, the earlier we have it, the better chance we'll have to fully
Well,
cost
I did
it
just
out.
get these yesterday, though.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying going forward, though, if there's something you want to counter or something like that, the earlier we get it, I can get it, priced out so we know exactly what it is.
Well, I think you're gonna know, it's gonna look like the CTA plan, so,
Okay, we're talking referendum.
Yeah.
All right.
okay, all right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank
Have a great
you.
day.